For my found object project, I decided to make a small end table out of some pieces of wood that I collected from around my neighborhood. I chose to make this end table because it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I love working with wood. I had initially thought about turning it into a clock, but once I found the piece of wood that I used for the pedestal, I knew that the two pieces would look great together as a table. I've always been a bit of a scavenger, and I can thank my mother and upbringing for that. My mom was always out looking for things to use in her craft projects, and I would accompany her on those adventures. Trash piles on the side of the road were always seen as opportunities to find treasures, or something that can be used to create something new. We would often stop on the side of a country road to pick up some pine cones that she saw, or to collect some Spanish moss hanging from the trees for her to use in some floral arrangements. I was the last of 8 children in our lower middle class family, so it wasn't very often that I would get something new. I was the recipient of all the hand-me-downs from my 4 older brothers and sometimes sisters, and when it came to toys or things to play with, well, I was left to just use my imagination or get creative. Since we first started learning about the quilters of Gee's Bend, I've been drawing parallels and connections with my own upbringing and current habits. Many of the supplies in my workshop are accumulations of scrap lumber that I've picked up from new home construction sites around the neighborhood, or logs or branches from felled trees, from wood piles just on the side of the road, and I see something that I think is either beautiful or unique or, potentially really cool, I can't help but stop and grab it. And being able to see the usefulness in random objects that would be discarded by other people and how they might be turned into something beautiful or useful is a talent that I'm grateful to possess, and it reminds me a lot of the quilters of Gee's Bend. A lot of this is out of necessity for me because I don't have a lot of money to throw around at supplies and tools. I end up using what I find and what I have around me, which tends to get me into the hoarding boat a little bit. But, I feel like I have it under control enough to not be that big of a concern. But I always look at things for its usefulness and for how I can create something out of it or just put it to use. And, this project was a little bit more tedious and time-consuming than I'd originally expected it to be. There were so many small cracks and splits in the slice of wood that I chose that I was hoping one epoxy pour would be enough, but it ended up taking multiple epoxy pours and almost all of the epoxy that I had on hand. I have very little left. It took a surprising amount, but even then I ended up discovering other little areas that didn't fill in or little air bubbles that left a void, and eventually I just had to say enough is enough, and I'm going to have to just be content with this tabletop the way it is. But making this table has definitely taught me that I'm capable of creating something beautiful out of objects that others see as trash or unusable. And also that, I've also learned that maybe people in my community could be a little less wasteful, maybe. There are trash piles out on the side of the road all the time that I see with things that could be used, but I guess it just leaves it for the rest of us.